So tonight's focus is on employment. Employment provides us with the income we need to pay for our housing, pay for our food, other necessities, and even some of life's pleasures. But it also gives us a sense of purpose and social relationships with colleagues and others. There are lots of agencies working to foster inclusion in the workplace, and a number of them are represented here tonight to talk with you about their particular approaches. During the resource fair, you'll have a chance to learn what they do to support employment for individuals with disabilities and talk about your particular interests. But before we get that underway, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening. Jeremy Shapira is Giant Eagle's Senior Director and HR Business Partner for the Market District and GetGo. I think I got all that right. He's a graduate of Shadyside Academy here, the University of Pennsylvania, and Yale. And in Pittsburgh, he serves on the boards of Leadership Pittsburgh, the Sprout Fund, and the Chiva. Jeremy also co-leads the United Way corporate campaign at Giant Eagle, which raises lots of money for good things. Most importantly, recently for our purposes tonight, Jeremy's been instrumental in launching a pilot project that's in partnership with the United Way of Allegheny County's 21 Enable program, also about helping people to move into the world, the Blind and Vision Rehabilitation Services, and Allegheny County's Office of the County Executive. I don't know if anybody's here from there tonight, but we're proud of that. Their goal is to help ease the transition from school to work for young adults with special needs. Please join me in welcoming Jeremy Shapira, who has some things to share with us.
I am really thrilled to be here to talk about the Career Transition Liaison Project. It is a revolutionary idea that hopefully some of you know about already. And if not, I encourage you to visit the 21 Enable table as well as the Giant Eagle table to learn more. But I just want to give you a sense of why we think it's so revolutionary, some of the challenges that we have faced in setting up the program and sort of the ongoing challenges of recruiting. And then of course, I'll be here all night to answer any questions that you may have if I don't cover it in what I'm going to say now. So Giant Eagle has a 30-year history of hiring people with disabilities. But I would say up until the 21 Enable project came along, our strategy was largely decentralized. So if you walk into a Giant Eagle store today and see someone with a disability working in one of the stores, it's usually because an agency has built a relationship with that store. And we really weren't thinking about it strategically across the entire organization. In fact, I can't even tell you how many people with disabilities the organization currently has working because we don't measure. That's largely because we like to treat everyone exactly the same, and we don't think that it's valuable to single out people with disabilities. And we really only say that we employ hundreds at this point. So when the United Way approached the company about participating as the employer in the pilot of 21 Enable, we of course agreed. It's a wonderful opportunity. And the idea is we're not testing whether we can hire and employ people with disabilities in the long run because we've proven that we can do that. What we're really testing is this concept of what we call the Career Transition Liaison. And the reason why this is important is because we have embedded a professional into the organization. And I mentioned Barb Graham before. Barb, can you stand up and raise your hand so everyone can see who you are? One of the things that's so revolutionary about the program is that, frankly, it costs a lot of money to employ Barb. She is full-time at Giant Eagle. And this is not a position that existed prior to the 21 Enable project. And so we approached the Giant Eagle Foundation to support the pilot for 2 years. And the foundation can only donate money to a nonprofit organization, which is how an organization called Blind and Vision Rehabilitation Services of Pittsburgh got involved. Barb is actually an employee of BVRS. She is not an employee of Giant Eagle. And that's one of the revolutionary things here, is that the foundation community has signed up for this, because Giant Eagle Inc., at least right now, cannot afford to pay for this position. And that's where the foundation comes in. Once we got the money from the foundation, we went through a competitive process where there were, I think, about 10 applicants. The United Way initially screened the applicants and narrowed it down to about 3. And then Giant Eagle had the final opportunity to select, obviously, the final candidate, who was Barb. Barb started in August of last year. We asked her to participate in a month-long onboarding process where she applied to positions, she went through the screening process, she met with hiring managers, spent time in the stores, actually doing work to really understand how the company works and how the stores work. We originally set a goal of hiring 12 people over 12 months. But I said, well, actually, that's not good enough, because the way that we measure whether we've made a quality hire at the company is whether someone stays at least 6 months. And so we agreed that we wanted 12 people with disabilities, 12 high schoolers with disabilities, to remain employed at the company for at least 6 months. What that means is that Barb had to hire, because the first year obviously was a year, Barb had to hire 12 people in the first 6 months just to see if they're going to stay for 6 months, if that makes sense. I'm seeing some heads nodding, thank you. And I thought that was a huge challenge. I had no idea if she was going to be successful, and really didn't know what was going to happen. Well, September started, the school year started. Barb hit the ground running, and essentially spent the first few months building relationships with transition counselors in Pittsburgh area schools. And all of a sudden, the floodgates opened. And the first month, she made 1 hire. The second month, she made 2 hires. The next month, she made 5 hires. And people were really coming out of the woodwork. And what it said to me is that there was a real need in the community for this, something that I was not necessarily aware of before. It was a real educational process for me. The reason why Barb's position is so important and such a change for the company is because, just from a recruiting perspective, to give you some idea of the volume of work, we get about 240,000 applications a year to all of the various positions in the company, and there are about 50 recruiters to handle all of that work. The recruiters just simply do not have enough time to pay as much attention to each candidate that high schoolers with disabilities might need to get through the process. And that is really where Barb comes in, is that she is entirely focused on helping students with disabilities understand what it takes to get a job, help them through the online application, facilitate the selection process, make sure that the people who are responsible for new team members onboarding understand how to work with people with disabilities, and then set up our team leaders and team member relations staff for success to help the team members be successful in the long run. And without Barb, people with disabilities just get lost in that process. And I can't tell you how many people either sort of weed themselves out in the application process or try to get through training but don't make it for whatever reason. But Barb's position is responsible for making sure that that process goes smoothly. And before we had Barb, I would say our success, I couldn't even say what our success rate was. So, the bottom line of why that position is important is she really is a hub of information between the schools, the parents, a critical part in this process, obviously, the candidates themselves, and the company. And again, without Barb, I think we would be much further behind where we are today. So I am actually thrilled to report that after the first 12 months of the pilot, BARB was able to hire 28 students, 21 of whom were still employed at the end of the first year. And remember I said that the goal was to make sure that there were at least 12 people who stayed 6 months or more. We, I can't believe that this happened, but we got 11 people to stay 6 months, and the 12th person stayed 5 months and 28 days. So, for all intents and purposes, we reached our goal. But Giant Eagle is a highly ethical company, and I cannot take credit for something that didn't actually happen. But for all intents and purposes, we reached our goal. I would say some of the challenges that we faced through the process, the biggest challenge that we faced is that the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation in the state only will provide job coaching for high schoolers if they are on a job track, or a job track. If a student is on a college track, they won't provide job coaching dollars, which I agree with. I think if someone needs to go to college, they should focus on being a student. But it presents a huge challenge for students who want to go to college and want to work while they're in high school. We really had to essentially scrape up job coaching dollars. And I'm very thankful to the United Way, as well as to Blind and Vision Rehabilitation Services, who really stepped up to the plate, because without these job coaching dollars, we wouldn't be able to hire as many people as we did. So the biggest challenge that we faced is really job coaching dollars. The second challenge that we faced is essentially getting candidates ready for work. We only have an online application. That is the only way to apply to Giant Eagle. And for someone who may have a cognitive disability and can't understand what they are trying to fill out on the application, unless someone asks us for help, I have no idea that it's happening. And that is, again, an example of where Barb comes in, is she helps the student ask for accommodations. So the online application is clearly a roadblock for certain people. A second roadblock that we have is there's also an assessment that's attached to the application. So all candidates, in theory, have to go through what's currently 45 questions that help us determine the match with the position that they're applying for. What we've decided, and what the law says, is that we are allowed to bypass the assessment for high schoolers with cognitive disabilities. So again, that's where Barb comes in. She works with the right people to just bypass the assessment. But you can imagine, if someone takes the assessment and then fails, I have no way of knowing that. And so we need to prevent that from happening right up front. Another big challenge that we faced is some of the students that Barb has been working with don't have proper identification. We cannot hire someone unless we can complete their I-9s. And unless someone has a driver's license or an official state ID, as well as an original birth certificate, or alternatively a passport, we can't hire them. And many of the candidates that she works with don't have the proper identification, and so she's been working with families to make sure that the students get the right identification. And then the last challenge I would say we have is, frankly, just sort of general life skills. One is we expect people with disabilities to show up to work on time, just like anyone else. And if the candidate does not have proper transportation to make sure that they get to and from work, it will fail in the end. And so again, that's one of the things that Barb has been working on, is making sure that either the family or there's some other resource that can provide the right transportation. The second thing is the candidate still has to go through an interview. We are not allowed to skip the interview process. And so many of the candidates that Barb is working with have no experience conducting an interview. And frankly, they need practice before they start talking to one of our recruiters. And so, although to you and me this might seem like a very basic thing, to someone, especially with a cognitive disability, could be very, very challenging. And it just represents the relatively simple but still challenging roadblocks that are presented in the normal process. I guess I will close by saying we are off and running in our second year of the pilot. At Barb, I think we are up to, are we up to 36 now? I'm sorry, 4? I'm sorry? Yeah, so that means we've hired a total of 38 people in 15 months, 28 in the first year, and then another 10 this year. I think we're up to 14 who have stayed at least 6 months, which we're extremely proud of. And then I'm equally as proud to say that we have already expanded the program with a second career transitions liaison through a partnership with Achieva. There's an Achieva representative here, Bill Fraze. We recently hired Melissa Hull, who's also at the Giant Eagle table, to focus on really two things. Melissa is doing something a little bit different than Barb at the beginning, something I'm extremely excited about. She is spending the first few months really digging into the way the work happens at the organization. And in about 2 months is going to make a series of recommendations about what we need to change to facilitate hiring more people with disabilities. This is really where the change will happen, because we don't customize work. We don't say that we're going to change the way a job happens to suit an individual. What you need to do is change the way the work happens to enable more people to do it, which is a little bit of a nuanced distinction. I hope you understood what I meant there. And that's really what Melissa is going to teach us, is here are the ways you can change the work to enable more people with disabilities to be good candidates. And then she's going to transition into making hires. She's going to focus on, because of the agreement with United Way and Barb, this first year she's going to focus on hiring non-high school students in Allegheny County and people of all ages in surrounding counties. And so we have very high hopes for the partnership with Achieva, and obviously are very thankful for the partnership, so thank you very much. I think the bottom line of everything that I wanted to say is that I think embedding a professional in the organization is key to making progress in this field, and that ultimately there are very creative ways and very constructive ways of making real progress in employing people with disabilities. And we're currently working with other companies in the Pittsburgh area to sign up for this concept of the Career Transitions Liaison. We've proven that it works, and I think the sky is the limit. So thank you very much for the time.